How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Chaos Head. So, Yua, she turned out to be quite interesting. Ironically, I like her more now, although I also am not sure what the heck's going on with her because she seems like an investigator, like a PI or somebody, or a wannabe PI. But then you also have this idea that she seems obsessed with like the new age stuff. And I don't know. She asked him about like precognition, which made me think that maybe his at least some of his delusions are actually like premonitions. But it's like, that's interesting. Why would she know about that? Why would she ask about that? It's very, very, very intriguing. It is sad that like he kind of got betrayed again. I imagine that's gonna make things even harder for him as time goes on, and I doubt she's done with us, if that makes sense. I imagine that we haven't seen the last of her, but you know, we'll have to see. Plus, she goes to our school, so I mean, there's a good chance she's gonna run into us again. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Also, I'm cutting it close to the wire. I've started a new job, very exciting, but making my schedule a little wonky. This is pretty much recorded about as close to like uploading as I can really reasonably manage. Like, I still need to be able to like edit it, upload it, and all of that, and that all takes time. And in fact, if I run into any major problems, it could delay the video coming out because that's just the way these things roll. So let's cross our fingers, because I definitely had some issues with my Trails in the Sky episode. If you watched that one, ooh, that was one of the roughest recordings I've ever had. Like, well, maybe not ever, but it's been years since I've had that much go wrong, and so I'm a little nervous. Anyway, without that, let's get going. Let's jump into the mystery and see what happens next. I stuffed my mouth full of some fresh fish sausage as I turned on my PC.
僕じゃない。
Yeah, he's just probably like, just cope. Before long, my monitor shone brightly with my Sierra Town wallpaper.
僕がいるべき世界は
I went straight to ESO and opened it up without an ounce of hesitation.
ここじゃないんだ。
Interesting. He's so traumatized. Oh, that was the end of the chapter. Oh, man. I should have just kept going. That was 2 screens away from the end of the chapter. Oh, well. Vroom, vroom. Quick. Get on it if you're going to if you're going on the field trip. All aboard. Lying face down on the floor, Nishijo Takumi held a colored pencil in his hand. The other one was currently using was yellow, having switched from the red one only a few minutes ago. He joyously ran his pencils across the spread-out sketchbook, which he was nearly laying on top of. Takumi loved drawing pictures. He would always doodle on the edges of his notes during every lesson at school. The morning news had been left running in the background, but since news and the like was boring to a 4th grader like Takumi, he did not pay any mind. Vroom vroom, candy, get your candy here, only 300 yen. He was drawing a yellow bus and pretending he was the driver. All ashore, that's going ashore, we're heading out. Vroom. As he imagined the scene in his head, he made it actually happen in the picture. Times where he would get too excited and accidentally draw on the tatami beneath him were not exactly infrequent. Nanami, who would always read manga beside him, would scold him each time he did it. She had some nerves considering she was the little sister, usually saying things along the lines of, "Oh, come on, don't get the floor all dirty." Even so, Takumi had never become any less immersed in his art. However, when he got to the point of drawing the people in the window, his hand suddenly stopped. Then he ripped up the sketchbook and threw it away. That's odd. On a previous day, on a day when the autumn field trip had only been one day away, Takumi had suddenly been told by his parents that he couldn't go, even though it had been something he had been looking forward to for a very long time. Aww. So much so that he'd been in a constant state of excitement for the entire day, waiting for the next day to arrive as soon as possible. I mean, that's life as a kid. That cruel declaration from his parents was something Takumi absolutely could not accept. He kicked and screamed, saying he would definitely go no matter what, but it was no use. His parents would not listen no matter what he said, choosing only to repeat the same words again and again. "You just can't. We're doing this for you, Takumi." Takumi sank into his bed and trembled so much with so much frustration he was very close to ripping his futon to shreds. He resented his parents from the bottom of his heart. For Takumi, that field trip had been a big, big event that could not have come soon enough. Everyone else in his class could go, but he alone was not allowed to. From his perspective, that was beyond unreasonable. Takumi was in a lonely world. Everyone else was in a super fun world. To him, it felt like he alone had been completely cut off from it. He could not forgive the teacher, his classmates, anyone. They had all left him behind. And he especially could not forgive his parents for their sudden unfair decision. These feelings transformed into pure hatred towards his parents and toward all of his classmates. Takumi bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. He muttered curses at them over and over. Poor kid, man. But did they see a future? I wonder if what if his parents had precognitive powers and they foresaw something bad happening on the trip, so they held him back. But because he couldn't understand that and they couldn't explain that, he resented it. I don't think anyone should be allowed to go. The following morning arrived. The phone had been ringing over and over again since dawn. Each time his mother would pick up the phone, she seemed to be very shaken while talking. Takumi could not even get a wink of sleep. The clock passed 9 a.m. In her usual well-behaved manner, Nanami was sitting on the floor cushion reading manga. She told Takumi the day before, "I'm going to take a break from school and keep you company, Kay?" As if she thought it was an obvious thing for her to do. Their father had already gone to work, so he was not around. Their mother was very busy with phone calls and had yet to prepare breakfast. There was no need for him to go to school that day. Sullen as he was, Takumi opened his sketchbook and began drawing to distract himself. His feelings of rage refused to subside, so he tore up the sketchbook in frustration. As he did that, however,
あれ?このバス。
Nanami sounded puzzled. Takumi had thought she was talking about the picture, but her gaze was actually aimed at the TV.
ねえ、お母さん。
Nanami called out loudly to her mother, who was still very busy on the phone calls. Now listening, Takumi followed his sister's gaze and stared vacantly at the TV screen. The screen displayed a scene of a collapsed elevated highway. A section that was only about 50 meters long had fallen. Regrettably, a bus driving along there at the time had been caught up in the collapse, toppling onto its side beneath the overpass. It was the very same bus that Takumi should have been on. The bus his classmates were riding on. Fetch me. That's crazy. Yeah, there's... Precognition definitely is a thing, apparently. From just a single glance, Takumi could imagine exactly what had happened. His classmates were on the screen. One child was sobbing, another had blood across their forehead, and another was lying atop a stretcher being carried into an ambulance. The reporter was announcing the state of the accident with a grave look on their face, but Takumi did not really understand what they were talking about.
タクちゃん、大変よ。
His mother was standing at the entrance to the room holding a cordless phone. Her face was pale.
遠足のバスが高速道路で事故に遭っちゃったんだって。それ、今テレビでやってる。それで、斉藤先生が。
Aww, the teacher died. For some reason, Takumi was already sure of this. Everything had happened on the TV eerily similar to what he'd pictured in his head the night before when he'd been overwhelmed by frustration and hatred. Oh. Like, his parents seemed to know that it was a bad trip, so I think they had some kind of intuition for it, but now I wonder if he's going to start believing he can see the future. And I wonder if that's real? Like, is that really what's happening? Or not? That's really odd. Odd. It's so weird because, like, I don't know where to put this. It's like... If it were a fantasy story, I'd be like, oh, well, clearly he is influencing the future. Like, no. So they might be able to see the future, but it's like he might feel like he can create the future. Like it's his fault that the thing happened. Because he kind of wished it would happen in a way. But like he's a kid. He doesn't understand that, like, that's not even remotely close to what he was doing. So like if it was fantasy, it'd be like, oh, just go right over there. And if it were like, you know, just modern stuff, like purely modern and normal, I would be like, oh, well, this is a perception, but it's going to become like abundantly clear that all this stuff is just like mundane. Like the NewGen murders have been like a psychopath, and all the other like mystical stuff is just a bunch of waffle. But we're here in this middle zone, and I don't know where it is. So my mind's trying to take it in both directions, and I'm not happy with either one. Yeah, anyway. There was only one feeling that occupied the depths of his mind, a peculiar conviction, one where he was sure he had precognitive abilities. Long ago, a show on TV that examined people who claimed to have ESP had been etched into Takumi's mind. A person with precognitive abilities had appeared on the show, shocking the world by demonstrating frightening ESP in the experiment. The experiment verified whether or not the psychic could guess which of the 12 items were placed in what number box. They did this by placing the subject in a different room, then proceeded to have them predict which cards and items the name on them belonged to which box. Afterwards, staff members in the other room would place the actual items into boxes and verify how many the psychic foretold. The person on the show received an incredible 90% correct, causing an uproar among the entertainers. As this happened, Takumi tested if he could predict things the same way as the psychic on TV, only to get every single one correct. Of course, he did not tell anyone about this. So as he gazed up at the TV, he believed that the accident was yet another instance of his precognitive predictions being exactly right.
クラスの半数以上の子が怪我したらしくて。
Dang.
なんてこと。
His mother tried hugging him as he lay down, but Takumi avoided her grasp and crawled to the corner of the room.
でも、本当によかったわ。
Her eyes swam about as she whispered in a hollow voice.
今日、タキちゃんを休ませておいて、本当によかった。
Yeah. Dang. So I wonder why they did. Takumi felt sick. They were useless, he thought to himself. His abilities had not made a single difference. Just thinking about it made his heart turn to ice for an instant. After that, Takumi stopped speaking to others for a while. He quite literally went mute, did not say a single word to another soul. His parents worried about him, and their already overprotective habits escalated even farther. Seems like a cycle here. Finding them to be acting more and more ridiculous, Takumi thus decided to play the role of a mute boy. He thought of it as a revenge against them. Due to his complete lack of talking, his mother took him to be seen to a psychiatric ward at the general hospital, and there he was diagnosed with PTSD. Seems a common thing for these games. Since Takumi did not actually have PTSD or anything of the sort, he never once took his medicine. He merely pretended to. His parents never realized he was acting, and in the end, he didn't feel even a hint of pity as they worried themselves sick over him. Interesting. Interesting. What an interesting backstory. Everything felt like a lie. The world was filled with falsities. It was overflowing with malice. It was out to get me.
いつもあなたが使っているチャットルームへログインして自分で調べてみてください。
Oh boy.
私の言っていることが間違っていないってわかるはずです。
So interesting.
それと、私が言ったことは全部本心です。これだけは信じて。
She said that? Or is he deluding this? Because that implies that she genuinely liked the show, that she genuinely wanted the figure. But, I mean, feels like a little too late kind of a thing. She did betray us, essentially. After bombarding me with her nonsensical theories, Yua had said that one last thing before she'd left. There was no way I could believe her. How the hell was I supposed to believe someone that had been lying to me this entire time? I refused to believe that everything there was me, like you had said. Everything she'd said about being a shogun was a total joke. I wanted to believe that. But when I checked the timestamps in the chat log, there was no mistaking that conversation wasn't matching up.
僕は無遊病なの?
Honestly, a genuinely more interesting theory. Something I was kind of thinking about too. A behavior disorder which during sleep, especially non-REM sleep, the subject gets up as if they're conscious, wanders around, eats, bathes, etc., but cannot converse beyond simple topics. Depending on the individual, the state can last anywhere from a few minutes to half an hour. At the end of that time frame, the individual returns to the place where they were initially sleeping and goes back to sleep. While in this state, the individual is completely unconscious and as such has no memory of their actions once they wake up. This behavior often occurs in people with mental problems and is often said to be caused unconsciously by stress. I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I had a cousin who just, the whole time we were growing up, she was just really, I don't know, she might have been stressed, obviously, but She just always was a sleepwalker, to the point where it's predictable, to the point where we were able to like document it and follow her around. And then she would do really odd stuff too. Like one time she wandered outside at like 6 a.m. and like laid a blanket down and curled up in a second blanket and just fell back asleep on the lawn. And we had to wake her up and get her back inside. But yeah, I imagine it can be a symptom of other things. I just feel it was a bit broad stroke to say like, oh, it's often a symptom of mental like illness or mental like destabilization or something. I get it. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I don't think that was what was going on for her. I think she just had a propensity for it because she'd always been done it like growing up, especially once she hit puberty. Like that's really when it started. But yeah, the idea of sleepwalking, I'm not sure if it's sleepwalking, more of this idea, like I was kind of wondering if there might be a second like subconscious to him. Like I think I mentioned it last time. I was saying that like what if his subconscious sees the future and tries to talk to him through like delusions and maybe opportunities where he's like tired and maybe sleepwalking in general, and tries to use it to speak to him. Problem was, during the time Shogun appeared to be posting in chat, I hadn't been sleeping at all. If I recalled correctly, I had indeed been at that cafe at the time, but I hadn't slept, so I couldn't have been sleepwalking. In that case, I wondered why I didn't have any memories of posting as Shogun. Maybe my body had been being controlled by someone else, which would mean... No, that's ridiculous. Video games, no uncomfortable thoughts here. I feel like that was the best way to calm myself down as a way to escape from reality to the fictional world of ESO. In ESO, everything was fake, a lie. At the end of the day, its world was just a part of a video game. But in Baselard, I could become the godlike existence known as Neardheart. A fabrication like that, a lie like that, was something I'd readily accept. I wanted to stay there. Nobody would mind if I did, would they? Or maybe the world of ESO was actually the real world and my own reality was the fake one. Just a game. That's some dangerous directions to think. In that case, Nishijo Takumi would be a fictional character and Neardheart would be my true form.
ねえ。ナイトハルト。
Neardheart. That's what I was saying. Not Neardheart. Neardheart. I called out to the paladin standing inside the monitor. Was I controlling you or were you controlling me? Which is it? Could you be real and I'm a mere avatar? What if the world I was in was just a game in and of itself? If that were true, that would solve every mystery I was struggling with. Okay. Alright, game. How meta are we trying to go here? Because I feel like all of us at one point or another have kind of like wondered, like, it's the idea of the simulation, but the idea too of this, like, what if this wasn't real? What if this was something like a small piece of something else? Something more dynamic and interesting, and like you could take the religious point of view for it, but sometimes we take it simply just the mundane. It's like, what if there's just a whole lot more going on than we think, or that we're just kind of pieces on a board rather than these like purely autonomous, conscious beings. It gets really weird and hard to talk about. It's still interesting to like think about though. What if just like how I was staring at Neardheart with my monitor, what if someone was staring at me the exact same way? Calm down. Whose eyes are those eyes? Oh, what if that's what it is? What if we are the eyes? What if they become aware that we are watching them through a screen of a video game? And what if that's the whole point of this game? Wouldn't that be crazy if it was literally that meta, where we're the observer that he sometimes feels, that we as the player are the ones controlling him, who's controlling a player on his screen. He's having an existential crisis, wondering if he's also just a puppet of a story. Oh, that's crazy. That would make them the player controlling me. If I did have someone controlling me, would it kill them to do less of a crap job? Though I guess an avatar couldn't really complain. It would also explain how Shogun and I could be the same person, validating that theory. Come to think of it, it was kind of like when Lizlot was Neardheart, and Lizlot couldn't possibly exist in Baselard at the same time. I was the only one playing as them after all. Maybe Shogun and Nishijo Takumi were similar, and I couldn't exist in the world at the same and couldn't exist in the world at the same time. It was also possible that it was a bug. Speaking of bugs, encountering that bizarre girl in a murder case, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff that happened, couldn't have been bugs too. Could have been bugs too. Yeah, what a bug! The image Shogun had sent me flashed through my mind. I gripped my head with my hands and frantically shook it away. I wanted to run away from everything. If maybe, just maybe, there was a player controlling me. Please reset me already. Like, I think Doki Doki Literature Club has ruined me, because now I'm wondering if I open the files, like, can I? Like, just remake my character and start from scratch, please? What? Is it actually happening? The waiting room of the university hospital is filled to the brim with middle-aged people waiting to be examined. The view hadn't changed from a few years prior. It almost made me feel as if time itself had stopped there. Moreover, everyone there looked miserable, and the smell of disinfectant pervaded this stagnant air. It was the kind of place that sucked all the life out of you and made you wish for the sweet embrace of death in 5-minute stops. I didn't like hospitals. The way the lobbies had countless people, yet the corridors beyond felt completely devoid of them, had always freaked me out ever since I was a little kid. It almost felt like the corridors themselves absorbed and stewed in the stench of death. I always felt like that was what hospitals truly represented beyond its outside facade. I even thought that some horrific creature was lying in wait deep within the corridors. That was why I really didn't want to go there, but there was something I had to make sure of no matter what, so I found myself reluctantly waiting my turn in line for an examination. Even when I tried to fully immerse myself in ESO, the bombshell that Yua had dropped on me continued to swirl around and around in my head. I hadn't been able to concentrate for even a second. So he's literally gonna go like get his brain scanned or something to be like, what's happening to me? As a result, my mind had been torturing me with all the various possibilities all the way until morning. I'd become genuinely scared that something was wrong with me. That was why I went to the hospital, to get an official stamp of approval from a medical professional that said, Nishijo Takumi is completely normal. I wanted to prove that it wasn't me who was abnormal, but Yua. I was used to coming to the hospital psych ward, and yet when the grill, oh right, that's the internet slang version. The grill at the reception asked, "Is this your first time?" I nodded without thinking. Ever since that bus accident, my mother had regularly taken me here for checkups. During middle school, my physician said that I'd completely recovered, and I stopped going after that. This is my first time coming back in about 4.5 years. Whoa, what the fetch? Okay, interesting. My first physician had been some senile professor who was supposed to have some authority in the field, but I'd only seen him a few times, and after that, someone else had taken over, a student of his or something. Okay. There's like, Men in Black back here. This doctor. Interesting. All right. I promise you all. Okay. I promise you all, I'm going to start using these more. And now that the delusions might mean something, I want to see what they do. A negative one or a positive one? Would he be having a negative experience or a positive experience here? I'm going to say negative, but I want to see a positive one. Yeah, let's go negative though. Although despite calling himself the other guy's student, he hadn't been particularly young. To be honest, he looked pretty old. The night before, I was reminded of something the Dr. Takashina had said.
ここは病気や怪我だけじゃなくて、心にも効く病院なんだよ。
I hated hospitals, but that doctor had been very nice. He left a good impression on me, and I thought he was a good person. Well, even then, I'd still thoroughly fooled all the adults to the very end. That is, except Dr. Takashina. He'd seen through it all, and he was the one that declared me completely recovered.
あの人に調べてもらえれば。
I wondered what he'd say if he learned I'd become an otaku freak. Nah, there's no way he'd remember me after all this time. All right, let's see what this is. It didn't take long for me to be called into the examination room. I'd expected to be waiting there for quite a while, but I guess I was wrong. She's wearing like a nurse outfit from like the 60s or 50s. Why have there been so many people in the lobby then? Maybe they were being paid to just sit there and make it look busy? It was different. It was a different examination room than the one 4 years ago, but when I stepped inside, I was welcomed with a face I remembered dearly.
Yeah, Nishijo-kun.
Dr. Takashina looked at me with a beaming smile. He hadn't changed a bit after 4 years. Feeling relieved, everything I was thinking spilled out all at once.
先生、助けて。
どうしたんだい？
変な女が僕にストーカー行為を。このままじゃ学校にも行けないし、家にも一度来られてて場所知られてるから安心できないし。
Oh, wow.
落ち着いて。
落ち着いてなんていられないよ。あの女異常だ。僕は正常なんだ。それに岩だけじゃない。悪魔女だって。
Sorry, I had to take care of something. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that girl. I'm totally normal. It's not just you as that demon girl.
そうだ、悪魔女が真犯人なんだ。
真犯人？
ニュージェネの犯人だよ。間違いないんだ。僕は事件現場で死体を貼り付けにしてる最中のあの女を見たんだ。
大丈夫だ。何も心配いらないから。
Uh-huh.
とにかく落ち着こう。いいね。
Having been admonished by him, I stopped talking. Didn't understand how he knew everything would be all right, but he was a professional, not to mention Dr. Takashina, so I guessed he must be right. That's what I told myself. My breathing was ragged, likely thanks to getting so worked up. I took a deep breath. Dr. Takashina stared fixedly at me. What concerned me, however, was that the look on his face was pretty serious.
本当に大丈夫なの？
もちろんだよ。
あんな危ない女が僕を、狙ってるのに、なんでそう言い切れるの？
理由を知りたいかい？
Oh boy, here's where it gets twisted, right, from the bad version. When I nodded, he lightly shrugged his shoulders. He spun the pen in his hand around his fingers, likely out of habit.
なぜなら、君の言っている女の人は、
Oh.
この世には存在しないからだよ。
Huh.
でも、
君は自分の妄想に怯えているだけなんだ。
Oh, is that supposed to be him? Or just, it could just be a delusion, but what if that girl's like his other version? What if he's the one doing the murders? His tone of voice was so gentle, it was eerie. I started trembling all over, I couldn't stop it. Why was this happening? Even though Dr. Takashina was being so nice, he...
西条くん、君はその女の人には会っていない。わかるね？
わからないよ。
じゃあ、もっと具体的に言おうか。君はその女の人には会えるはずがないんだ。もう7年間も君はこの病院から一歩も
Never left the hospital?
外に出ていないんだからね。
Right. Oh, this is one of the worst ones. Like, there's a few shows that have done this idea of like someone feeling like they step out of like their life and into a psych ward. And they're told, oh, everything you're talking about, like you think you believe it's not real, but this is the real world. We've been trying to like get you out of it. And then they keep bouncing back and forth until they get locked in one of them. That was always one of the most horrifying concepts. And we placed in these like fairly normal shows like Star Trek, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think they did one in, what was that? It was the Shield show. I think they did that in that one too. But every time it happens, it makes my blood run cold. Huh? What the heck was he?
君はこの病院の精神科に7年間入院している。そのことはわかるだろう？
What the heck was he talking about? How could he casually spout off such insane bullcrap with a smile on his face? I inadvertently glanced down at the clothes I was wearing. When I'd come to the hospital, I was wearing a denim long-sleeve shirt and on top of a blood-tuned t-shirt, along with the only pair of jeans I had. That was the outfit I should have been wearing. But for some reason, I was now wearing a hospital gown. A one-piece, colored a pale yellowish green, a simple piece of clothing tied together with a cord that hung in front. Wasn't even wearing shorts down below. When did I change clothes?
ここは閉鎖病棟だからお見舞いの人も来ない。入院患者さんも男女で別フロアに分けられていて行き来はできない。精神科の看護師は全員男だし、君の病室は完全に個室。窓もない。つまり君は7年間女性と接触したことがないんだ。君の家族も含めてね。思い出したかな？
I don't like this one. Abort! He was lying. He had to be. I hadn't been hospitalized at all. I was living on my own in Shibuya with a pretty well-known high-level player at ESO, and I even went to school. Sure, I only went according with the minimum attendance chart, but that was still 2 or 3 times a week. I even just had a fairly professional, cordial chat with the nurse at the reception desk. This is your first time here? Yes, it is. All right, then please fill out this form as you wait.
嘘に決まってる。
本当にそう思うのかい？
As he murmured that, Dr. Takashina scribbled something out in the medical form he was holding. I couldn't tell what he was writing. It wasn't Japanese. Was it English? German?
だとしたら君の精神はまだ異常だっていうことだよ。もうしばらくは入院が必要だね。
He gave me a single fleeting glance. His eyes were full of pity, even though he'd never looked at me such a way before. I collapsed on my knees helplessly, tears pouring from my eyes. Oh, I see. It all made sense now. All my memories up until now had just been delusions. It was me all along. I was the crazy one. What a cruel twist this was. Then again, it wasn't like I cared anymore. Even if they were delusions, they weren't fond memories anyway, and I mean, I could just make new ones, right? This time, a world without scary murders happening around me would be nice. I'd have a sociable personality, get good grades, have some crazy talents, I'd be super popular with the ladies. My friends would all be the hotties, as hot as the hottest swimsuit models, and what's more, everyone would love the everlasting crap out of me. Then I'd propose that we should start all living together under the same roof, and after that, my new life would begin. It wouldn't be easy. It would have its ups and downs, but it'd be fun. There'd even be a bit of slapstick thrown in there. I forced myself to laugh. My face twitched. I wanted to die. I abruptly came to my senses only to find myself sitting on a sofa in the lobby. Nasty sweat covered my entire body. A chill ran down my spine. Unable to grasp what exactly was going on, I frantically looked around the room. Beside me was a hunched-over old lady. Her eyes were covered in wrinkles, so I couldn't tell whether she was asleep or awake. I took a look at the clock above the reception desk and saw I'd been waiting in the lobby for a full hour. Had that all just been a dream? I hadn't slept last night, so I had dozed off while waiting. I gave a deep sigh of relief. It'd been a bad dream. It had been a bad dream, right? Let's do a positive one next time. I don't want to do that anymore. I tried remembering everything that happened until the day before. Nothing seemed out of place. My memories were continuous and consistent. I'd encountered the demon girl at the scene of the crime, then got deceived and subsequently threatened by Yua, then I'd gone to the hospital to prove that I was a perfectly sound mind. Yep, everything added up. There's a lot of time between those things, though, like days. I wouldn't mind if it all ended up being a delusion, though. That way, creating another new delusion world that I could go nuts in would have been much, much better. The fact that I was even thinking that just went to show how utterly sick I was with everything that had been happening in my life recently. Dang. I mean, haven't we all imagined that? Like, the whole reason why isekai as a genre is so popular is because there's a part of many of us that's like, And if I could have a redo, or if I could go to a world that had different rules, or if I had a chance to like the biggest boon, honestly, would be the chance to like start over young, but have all the memories that you've attained up until now. That way you could have like a really early start, just have the wisdom that you've gained, but then the like the bounty that is like an unrestrained future. That's very, very tempting. I see, like, that's why it's such a fun genre. It's something that we, even if we don't admit it to ourselves, I think we subconsciously really like that idea. Because sometimes life sucks. Like, life is usually worth it. And, well, I say it is. It's just, it's hard to say that when I have such, like, you know, comfort and peace in my life, and a lot of other people don't. But at the same time, it's not like we really get to choose how, like, the hand we're dealt. We just get to choose what we do with the time that we're given. And, yeah. Sometimes we just wish we could have a reset button. And I think that's perfectly healthy and reasonable. Now, chase it too far, or obsess about it, to the point where you start sacrificing or wasting away all your time daydreaming about what could be, rather than trying to make the most of what you have, that's dangerous. In the end, I found myself waiting for another 2 hours before my name was finally called. That sounds like a hospital. When I entered the examination room, it almost felt like the same events I'd seen in that dream were happening again. Dr. Takashina even appeared almost exactly like he had in the dream. It was probably just that he barely changed since the last time I saw him 4 years ago.
今日はどうしました?
Dr. Takashina didn't say anything ridiculous like your memories are delusions this time, but...
西条です。
ん? ああ、これはご丁寧に。高階です。
Oh.
はじめまして。
Oh, he doesn't remember you, but he's busy, but... He bowed his head cheerfully. I was lost for words. It's a pleasure to meet you. That was when he just said. He'd completely forgotten of me. I shouldn't be surprised. It's been 4 years, after all. But I truly believe that Dr. Takashina, of all people, would remember me. Maybe that was arrogant, but I hoped for it all the same. But my heart was overwhelmed with loneliness and emptiness when those expectations were smashed to pieces. Felt like my very existence was being denied. Dr. Takashina started talking to me while making eye contact, but I averted my eyes.
無遊病かどうか調べてほしいと書いてあるが、何かあったのかな?
Right, I'd written that on the questionnaire, but it was all meaningless now. He didn't remember me at all.
別にいいじゃん。
See, this is the person that's terrifying, because whenever she's intervened before, and it's been very, very worrisome. And it's also like, I kind of like realized, I think someone mentioned it before, but I'm kind of drawing that parallel. That crazy psycho girl that we saw that might be a representation of like alternate versions of, the alternate version of us, has pink hair and looks kind of similar to her. That's terrifying.
先生が覚えてようが覚えてなかろうが関係ないっしょ。最初の目的を忘れちゃダメ。
What mission? Oh, right. I hadn't come here to meet Dr. Takashina. I'd come here to prove that I was completely healthy and sane human being. Our reunion was merely a bonus. Who gives a crap if he'd forgotten me? If Sierra Tan hadn't stepped in to give me that advice, I would have come dangerously close to losing sight of myself. Whew!
自分でも知らないうちに外に出かけててパソコンで文章打っててそれを全く覚えてないなんてありえますか？
おお。
知り合いからそう指摘されて混乱しちゃって。
At least he's being kind of honest here. He's not dancing around it.
その知り合いの人が冗談を言っているっていう可能性はあると思うかい?
Yua's eyes had been serious. It hadn't looked like she was messing with me. At the very least, I had no doubt that Yua believed what she said.
わかりません。
なるほど。ちなみに、その知り合いとはどういう関係だろ 恋人？
は
Where the heck did that come from? And what did it have to do with anything? Was I missing something here?
いや、言い方が悪かったかな。じゃあ言い直そう。
Okay. What? I know what he's going for here, but I really don't know what the connection is.
その知り合いの人は、君が意識もないまま歩き回っているのを実際に目撃したのかな。
Oh, so that's what he meant. I shook my head.
じゃあ、
Oh, yeah.
証拠はないわけだ。
He meant, were they in the room in bed with us when it happened and thus can corroborate that he actually was walking? I once again shook my head.
そいつ、探偵気取りって、いろいろ証拠を突きつけてきて。
そういうことか。ちなみに、これまでにも無遊病の兆候はあったかい？
いえ。
朝目覚めたらいつものベッドじゃなくて違う場所で寝てたっていうことは過去に一度でもあった？
Yeah, that's that's what my cousin would do. And like the fact that she went outside, lay down in the grass and fell back asleep was really, really bizarre one, but it wasn't uncommon for her to like fall asleep in a room and wake up on the couch in the living room. Or one time she claimed, I don't know if this is true, but she claimed she one time woke up inside her car with her keys in her hand. That's terrifying because that implies that she was trying to drive somewhere while sleepwalking. But again, I can't corroborate that one, so I don't know if she was just telling a story. But I don't think she was.
いえ。
じゃあ、その知り合いに言われたのが初めてっていうことだね。
After nodding weakly, I steeled myself and spoke.
僕、寝てないんです。
もしかして怖いのかな。でもそんなに深刻になる必要はないよ。
いや、その。
That's not what I meant. But I couldn't figure out how to explain it. It was too late to say it out loud anymore. I was too flustered. After scribbling something on the medical form, Dr. Takashina swiveled away from me in his chair and leaned forward toward the back of the examination room.
葉月くん、ちょっと。
はい。
Oh, hello. She has like a full sprite. Interesting. I like the hair. The young nurse rushed over to him and Dr. Takashina showed her the form. As he did so, he whispered for her to do something and she quickly withdrew to the back of the room. What had that been about? The doctor turned back toward my puzzled self, then in a gentle voice began to explain to me how sleepwalking worked. When a person falls asleep, they first begin non-REM sleep before eventually progressing to REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is a deeper sleep where the brain hibernates and brain activity ceases. Meaning, REM sleep is a kind of sleep where the body's resting but the brain is active in a state that's fairly close to being awake.
無遊病はノンレム睡眠の時に起きやすいって言われてる。脳が通常の活動をしていないから普通の受け答えとかは成立しにくいけど、ちゃんと返事もするし、階段などを踏み外さずに上り下りすることだってできる。
It does look kind of cool because, like, the way sleep works is actually very much like how our computers have to be maintained. You just occasionally just need to shut down and it kind of resets. But for us, it's chemical because our brain uses chemicals to send the signals that we use to think and formulate thoughts. But after a while, those chemicals become strained. Like, it starts to run low. It has to start using backups or has to try and modify and reset itself, like, whilst awake. So it's like, it'd be like trying to gas up your car while you're like driving. Can you add fuel to the tank whilst moving? Yeah. Is it easy? No. Is it efficient? Absolutely not. So you need sleep because your sleep lets you reset all the chemicals in your brain. And then, like, in your REM sleep, your brain fires. But, like, they talk about how, like, the patterns don't simulate what we normally experience as, like, just a day-to-day life. Like, the whole brain just, like, kind of lights up and shuts off and just, like, these very interesting patterns. Essentially, it's just kind of like troubleshooting, maybe, like testing and, like, maybe, like, making sure the connections are sound. Essentially, it's just a maintenance period for your brain. And the dreaming that we experience often in REM sleep, they believe the best explanation for what dreams are is it's your brain, like, while it's in this resetting phase, kind of grabbing pieces of like the brain, the neurons lighting up and weaving together a cohesive whole. It's kind of like almost like the brain's like casual exercise, or stretches, maybe that's a better analogy. Like your body is like during the day when your mind's moving, it's like you're jogging or walking. You know, you go and you go and you go, and even if you take it easy, eventually you get tired. But when you rest, it's like your brain sits down, it takes a break, and then when it's in sleep, like when you're dreaming, that's your brain doing its stretches. Like it's moving the body, it's gonna get in there, it kind of feels relatively similar to what you've been doing, but the motion and the movement's not about going places, it's about like kind of stretching out, resetting, and getting like a refresh so that you're ready to continue on. And dreams are just the interpretation of the stretches.
原因としては、精神的なストレスを抱えてる時になりやすいんだ。子供に多い症状だけど、成人でもよくある症状なんだよ。これでわかっただろ？深刻になることはないって言った意味が。
So he's saying, he's essentially said gently, I don't think you're sleepwalking, but if you are, it's not a huge problem. But I hadn't been sleeping. Even though I hadn't been sleeping, I'd still done things I didn't remember. The times Shogun had been posting from room 37 in a chat room should have been when I was busy playing ESO. Could sleepwalking really be possible there? I wanted to ask him that, but he was already moving to a different topic.
無遊病かどうかを調べる方法としてはいくつかある。一番手っ取り早いのは、ここのベッドで寝てもらうことだね。
They just watch you sleep.
ただ、特定条件じゃないと発生しない場合もあるかもしれない。例えば、自分のベッドじゃないとダメとか。
Yeah, a lot of like, it's not necessary. Like my cousin would do it whenever, but yeah, it definitely is more frequent in places that you're comfortable, especially because that's where your movements aren't going to likely cause problems because you're subconsciously remember like the shape of your house, where your stairs are, how to walk up them.
意識がない状態で出歩くにしても、目的もなくふらふらと歩き続けるのか。それとも、何らかの脅迫観念があって、それに影響されて何らかの一連の目的を持って出歩いているのか。
Interesting.
それに、君の精神状態についても、特定の条件下じゃないとダメかもしれない。自宅のベッドの上ならリラックスできるけど、ここじゃリラックスのしようがないわけだ。
I've also heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard stories of people who are trying to break addictions that will sleepwalk into them, like cigarettes or drinking alcohol or overeating food. Like if you're on a diet and then like you sleepwalk to the fridge and grab something and just start eating it. There's a lot of conflicting there because it's like, it feels like it's just an easy way to try and make an excuse or cover up a mistake, like a moment of weakness. Oh, I was sleepwalking. I didn't know. But it also, there's a level of like credibility to it. If it's a habit that you know and you have the stuff around still, that even if it's not genuinely sleepwalking, what if you're just in like a really like sleep deprived or like half awake state and you're just not thinking clearly, and so you're just kind of like, oh, I'm hungry. No, bedtime. You know, like that kind of stuff.
どうする？とりあえず寝ていってみるかい？
I had nothing to lose, so I didn't see a reason not to try. Then after I proved I wasn't sleepwalking, I could try asking the real question I had in mind. The nurse from before, Hazuki-san or something, guided me over to the hospital bed located at the back of the room. As it wasn't a bed meant for sleeping, it was firm and uncomfortable. Then again, considering the sofa I usually slept on, that shouldn't pose any problems for me.
3時間くらいしたら起こしに来ますから。
Aww. This nurse was pretty darn cute. As I lied on the bed, I took a quick peek at her face while being careful to avoid eye contact. Her baby face made her look kind of unreliable. She even had this almost despondent aura about her, but she was doing her job pretty well. She felt like a heroine right out of a classic eroge. Well, of course. One with a kinky hospital sex fuhihi.
できるだけ目は離さないようにしていますので、安心して眠ってくださいね。
I wonder how often nurses have to deal with that kind of crap. You know, like people who just like, pervy. Basically, if symptoms of sleepwalking occurred, like I started wandering around on my own, she'd make sure to take care of me.
それでは、ごゆっくり。
Aww. After giving a slight smile, the nurse closed the curtain and left the hospital room. Now surrounded by pure white curtains, I took a deep breath. After all around me, I could hear the voices of doctors examining patients, the sound of nurses running around, the sound of the door, the examination room opening and closing. Sleeping in hospitals sucks. It's always so terrible. Yeah, I doubt I'd be able to relax here. Could I actually fall asleep like this? Figuring I had nothing to lose, I closed my eyes. No matter what I did, my mind refused to think of anything other than that corpse that had been massacred and crucified with stakes, as well as the gory pictures Shogun had sent me. I forcibly conjured serotonin into my head. Here we go. See, now this is like a happy delusion time.
外出嫌いなのに病院来るなんてすごい。私前から思ってたんだけどさ、タッキーって実はすごく強い男の子だよね。
Uh-huh. Sierra animatedly moved around in my delusion. Her cute voice chirped for me.
私、そんなタッキーの強さが好き。
Oh my gosh.
それに、タッキーは無遊病なんかじゃないよ。私、毎日タッキーのこと見てるもん。だからわかるさ。
I'm sure you are, Miss Delusion.
三次元女になんか騙されちゃダメだぞ。タッキーには私がいるっしょ。またあのコンテナハウスで二人きりで過ごそうね。ボケなす。
Oh my gosh, that's so creepy. Serotan, you're so cute, Serotan. She really was my ideal waifu. There's not a single woman better than her. 3D? The fetch was that? I want to go home already. I want to go home and have Serotan welcome me back with a smile. Wait for me, okay, Serotan? I'll be coming home soon. Alright, let's see a good one finally.
帰らなくてもいいよ。
I already don't like where this is going.
どういうこと？
迎えに来たから。
An incredibly realistic whisper reaches my ears. Felt almost like something was poking my cheek. I slowly opened my eyes. What the fetch?
おはよ、ボケなす。
Is this supposed to be her? Maybe her like normal form when she's not a magical girl? Look at that. What's the hair curl? It's the Ohego. Besides the bed stood Serotan, pre-transformation, Amanagawa Sarah version. And she certainly wasn't an 1/8 scale. She was life-size and she was moving smoothly. With a gulp, I sat up, then reached out to try and poke Serotan's breasts. Oh my gosh, dude. What a freaking psychopath.
おお
They were squishy, voluptuous. I've made a mistake. I've made a mistake. She's no figure. She's the real deal. Serotan just joined the thrill realm of 3D.
のんのん、ここは二次元だよ。
Wait, is it? Even though they're squishy?
二次元的にプニプニなんさ。
I'm sure that's a feat of physics right there, but okay. I didn't get what she meant, but as long as they were squishy, it wasn't like anything else mattered. I realized I touched her breast out of sheer surprise. I rapidly grew embarrassed. The life-size Serotan was insanely cute. So moe I could die. Almost more important of all, she was real. Thanks to that, the bashfulness that came from me touching her breasts and the fear of her potentially hating me for it had become much stronger.
ごめん、セーラタン。
タッキーならいいよ。
Oh my gosh. Blech.
本当？
他の人にはこんなことされるのは嫌だけどさ。特に進むとか。あいつに胸触られたら金棒で月までぶっ飛ばしちゃってる。
Okay.
知っ
静かに。声出すと看護師さんたちに見つかっちゃうっしょ。
Sayatan must have been being mindful of the world outside the curtain. Without making a sound, she then took off her shoes, climbed into the bed, and then on top of me. Oh no. Almost saying something out loud again, I hurriedly covered my mouth. Sayatan was straddling me. Oh no. I'm a little more worried that we're gonna have a different issue here if it's not the sleepwalking. Why? I'm gonna just skirt pressing against me. This was bad. My Johnson was about to go berserk. Sayatan drew her face close to mine. A sweet aroma filtered into my nose, so that was how Sayatan smelled.
ねえねえ、タッキーも二次元になっちゃうべきだよ。
What's that supposed to mean?
タッキーはまだ三次元なんさ。だから、私が二次元にしてあげる。いいっしょ？
Can you really do that?
できるよ。それに、すっごく気持ちいいよ。
Oh my gosh. I could hear the sound of nurses hurriedly walking around, as well as the voice of doctors examining other patients. We were in a place separated only by a single curtain, and that curtain were open, we'd get found out for sure. That heart-pounding thought, combined with the taboo nature of something like this in a hospital, it was getting lightheaded. And to think I was committing such an obscene act with my number one waifu. Ah, this is what bliss is. All the thoughts had been pushed out of my mind, and so in response to everything Sayatan said, I nodded.
そうこなくっちゃ。そんなタッキーが好き。
What, that he just goes along with everything you say? Then Sayatan firmly pressed her lips against mine. Oh my gosh. This was a mistake. She was so soft. What was the softness of 2D? More soft than the real thing. The sudden broadening H scene turned my thoughts into pure spaghetti. I had no idea what the heck I should be doing. Then, in the face of my bewilderment, Sayatan pushed her tongue between my lips, encroaching upon my mouth. Where are we going? Felt so good, I started to feel dizzy. To think a kiss would feel this amazing. I wanted her seductive, swirling tongue to violate my mouth forever. Why is it bad? Why am I getting caught up in this? Arms wrapped around her waist. She was very thin, since she was 2D and all, flat as a board and yet squishy and voluptuous at the same time. Wasn't this basically the same as kissing paper, though? I felt so incredibly good, I didn't care. Sayatan was terror sexy. This is so slurpy. Sayatan sucked my tongue. It was too much. Felt like I was gonna die. Me too, buddy. I'm right there with you. This was such a bad idea. Starting to get painful now. Sayatan's suction was frighteningly strong. I tried pulling my tongue back, but couldn't. She just sucked it in even more. She was pulling on it hard, so hard it felt like it might rip off. It's turning into a horror! And then it wasn't just my tongue. The inside of my throat felt hot. My eyes felt like they were going to pop out of their sockets. Couldn't breathe, my chest hurt. The inside of my stomach churned and churned, turning into a pulpy, sopping mess. I thought this was supposed to be a good one. Well, I guess it started good. I was being sucked in. Everything inside my body, my organs, my flesh, my bones, they were all being sucked in by Sayatan. I could feel my pounding heart rise up from my throat, the thick blood vessels tearing off one by one. It was an impossible sensation. It was incomprehensibly painful, and yet I felt even more pleasurable. My entire body had become an erogenous zone. Yes, my entire body. Not just the outside. But the inside of my throat, my heart, my blood vessels, my lungs, my intestines. Having Sayatan violate the insides of my body, sucking it all in, devouring it whole, it made me so happy. And the happiness, the sheer ecstasy I was feeling, made me feel faint. Also, if I could be killing you, I'm gonna die. Felt so good, I'm gonna die. Oh, it's so much slurpier now. Oh no. After everything inside my body had been sucked out, Sayatan pulled her lips away, satisfied. Her mouth was dripping with a mix of blood and drool.
タッキーのすごく美味しかった。
She gave a bewitching smile. I didn't have the energy to respond. She'd taken everything I had. It was the first time I'd ever experienced such an overwhelming pleasure. I was in a total haze. Fog enshrouded my consciousness, and my thoughts were a blur.
ほら、タッキー。自分の体見てみて。タッキーもこれで2次元の住人だよ。
Oh boy. Although I was very unsteady, I tried getting off the bed and stand up. My body had become thin just like Seratan's. It was kind of hard to walk around. My body felt limp and I could hardly stand. Felt like my hands and knees hitting the floor without a sound. Seratan, I can't get up. Give me a hand here. Her voice came from above the bed.
2次元へようこそ。
Well, I'm scarred for life. I sprang up, only to find myself on the bed like before. My heart was pounding like crazy. My heart was still inside my chest where it should be. I touched every part of my body. I wasn't paper thin. I was still 3D. Couldn't see Seratan anywhere. As it should be.
夢か。
But was that a good thing or a bad thing? I let out a sigh. That scene was just like the one in the doujin I'd bought from Circle Piruporu. In other words, it had a delusion used as its basis. Why hadn't I noticed that in my dream? Well, I knew that was a dream because I hadn't noticed, but I couldn't help thinking that regardless.
西条さん
A voice called to me from the other side of the curtain. The curtain quickly opened, and the nurse from before, Hazuki-san, popped her head inside the room.
おはようございます。
I bowed my head silently, keeping my eyes low.
結局3時間ぐっすりでしたね。
Oh, dang. Had I really slept for 3 whole hours? I'd been lost in my dream that I'd completely lost all sense of time. Then again, I was pretty exhausted.
少しうなされていたみたいですけど、大丈夫？
Naturally, I couldn't mention my borderline wet dream straight to her face. Admitting to my maxed out libido stat would be pretty embarrassing.
でも、無遊病の症状は結局出ませんでしたよ。
Hazuki-san's reassuring voice conveyed that to me.
まあ、今日はたまたま症状が出なかっただけかもしれないから、無遊病でないっていう断定はできないですけど。
I mean, that's the proper response. No, I really didn't think I'm a sleepwalker, so... More importantly, I had to ask the doctor that really important question. But I couldn't see him anywhere. As I looked around, Hazuki-san handed me a blank form. Not really focusing all that hard, I took it from her and ran my eyes over it. It was fill-in-the-blank style form.
それは、あなたの心理状態を把握するためのチェックシートです。心理テストのようなものね。それを書いてくれたら今日はもう帰っていいって先生が。
先生は？
ごめんなさい。ずっと診察が続いてて。来週まで様子を見て、まだ改善が見られないようならもう一度来てくださいって。
I mean, that's fair. It's reasonable. It doesn't feel reasonable, but it's reasonable. Then again, it wasn't like he was my primary physician or anything, I suppose. He'd probably just give Hazuki a bunch of directions to get me out of here. Well, I guess that means there was pretty much no point in me coming to the hospital today. I really wanted to ask Dr. Takashina about something that wasn't me controlling me, whatever that meant. It really was chilling symptoms, so I didn't want to leave without getting an answer. That being said, I didn't have the courage to demand Hazuki-san to bring him back to me, especially when she'd already looked so apologetic. Reluctantly, I decided to give the test a try. Guess I'd write about my symptoms on the back of the sheet or something. If I did that, I should be able to get another examination scheduled for next week.
チェックシートは質問に対してイエスかノーかだけを答える簡単なものですから。当てはまる点があったらイエスにチェックしてくださいね。今後の西條さんの治療に対する参考にしますから、じっくり考えて答えてください。
Okay. Hazuki-san went out of her way to explain the procedure thoroughly. The test had some strange questions mixed in, ones you wouldn't normally expect to run into at a hospital. It really did seem like some sort of psychological test. Would they really be able to actually learn something from the questions like these? Hazuki-san stared at me intently. She showed no sign of leaving. But it wasn't like she had nothing else to do or anything. It was more like she was watching over me or something. My nervousness at being watched made it hard for me to think clearly, but I guess she was just doing her job. Either way, I knew I ought to fill out the test quickly. All right. And we're gonna read it. When you have business to take care of, you prefer using emails over phone calls. Oh, I actually get to do this. Oh my gosh, is this like a test for me? Oh, that's cool. I almost wonder, hang on. Okay. Tell you what, let's give this a proper sit through, but I really gotta wrap up because I'm running out of time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for joining me. We will do this interesting diagnostic. I just saw what one of the questions is. Oh boy. Yeah, let's handle this delicately, shall we? But yeah, let's, I don't know, I was about to say, like, maybe I'll take this question there, like, fitting me, but maybe I don't want to do that. Oh no. Okay. Let's give this a really solid attention next time and see what we think of. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. So, let's see what we do. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all had a good time. I certainly did. Very interesting to see he's actually going to a doctor and getting medical help. Very, very fascinating. And the fact that this thing is here at all is very, very interesting. I'm really curious to see what we make of it and what it makes of us. Fascinating. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for your patience. Next week, we'll have to see. I should still be able to be on schedule for everything, but really what's happening is that now that I'm like officially like being employed, I'm gonna have to go through a lot of training, and the training schedule really can throw a wrench into stuff. I don't really have a predictability to my schedule yet. Eventually I will, but until then, it might throw some chaos in. In fact, I can foresee that when like an upcoming major change is made, I might actually have to like stop making content for that week just because my schedule is just going to be so thrown out of whack. I don't know if I'll be able to adjust for it properly unless I have a little time. So we'll get to that. But anyway, I'll get to that later. Thank you to the patrons and members who support me directly. Your support and efforts go directly to making the channel better in any way I can. And to anyone who's just watching, thank you for your support. Like, we have a small but a powerful community. I'm very, very happy to have each and every one of you. And I want to keep making content. So if you like what I do, stick around. There's more to come. There's a great backlog. But yeah, otherwise, y'all have a good day. Thank you so much for everything. And until the next video you're watching me, I've seen me next. I'll see you there.